Hey everybody, this is Jim at SP500chart.com. It's Saturday morning, November 16th, 2013, and I'm going to do a technical analysis video of Arna Pharmaceuticals, ticker symbol ARNA. Before I get into it, though, I just need to remind you that that the website and this video are for educational purposes only, and nothing stated at the site or in the video is intended to be used as investment advice. I can draw lines on charts, but you have to draw your own conclusions from your own research and make investment decisions that are suitable for your personal financial situation. I am not a licensed financial professional. I'm just a guy who draws lines on charts. So let's take a look at Arna Pharmaceuticals. Now, I got a bunch of lines on this chart, and I've also got some moving averages, which I'm looking at in terms of the 50-day time period. As we zoom in and out of this chart, which we will do, these lines will move all over the place. Ignore them, except when we see them on the daily chart. So let's start with the daily chart. First, I've got a confession to make. The confession is I did not trust the chart. I did a video on Arna back in probably very early summer, was it? Or late spring, and I pointed out that it appeared to be that Arna was in a triangle consolidation that had lasted since summer of 2012 all the way through late spring, and I said that if this bottom line breaks, then we can look for the low fours. And guess what? The bottom line broke, pulled back, and then headed down to the low fours. And I did not sell my shares. I'd been buying on these dips inside this pattern. Now, keep in mind, I had plenty of dry powder, and the good news is, while I ignored what the chart was saying, and the reason I did was because we were right at the beginning of the launch. I'm like thinking, I'm not going to sell now. This product is just getting rolled out. It would take a crazy person to sell now. And, you know, I might even do that again. But I think clearly in retrospect, it would have been a heck of a lot better had I just said, forget the news, forget what I hear, sell on this pullback to about 750 and then wait for the fours. Man, that would have been sweet. But I want to show you a couple things that lead me to the possibility that this could be the spot to have gotten into this stock. First thing I want to show you is when we had this triangle pattern right here, when you break down out of these, there is a method that you use to measure the minimum expected target. Now, they call it the minimum target because you can expect the price to get down to that level, or if it breaks out to the upside, you can expect it to get up to that level. But sometimes and often it will exceed that. But the reason that's the minimum level is because there are enough times when technical chart readers have seen these patterns break down that they have noticed it goes there and no further. So how do you do that? Well, you measure the height of the pattern at the first reactive turn, which would be right here. You measure the height, and then you take this little stick, and I'm doing this on a logarithmic chart. Excuse me. You put this little stick right here where the initial breakdown first took place. Okay? Now let's zoom in just a bit. I got to do a 2-hour chart. Okay. We zoom in. There's our stick. There's our little measuring stick. And if we look at where that lines up with our lows, that measuring stick actually comes to about 409. Now, it's hard to draw a perfect measurement on any chart. At one point, I think I thought that the 420s would get that done, but 409, you just saw me do it there, and yes, Arena traded as low as 406. So in the regular session, traded as low as the 380s in pre-market on one day. And by the way, that would, for those of you who believe in the absolute necessity of gaps closing, if you want to throw in that pre-market trading on that day when we were as low as 406, that would have, quote, closed the gap. I would say, rather than closing the gap, I would say that is the point at which gap support kicked in. So there, what I'm showing you here is very simple. That Arena, when it traded up in this pattern for over a year, when it broke down, it has now taken the excess shares that people bought too high, and it has, by meeting this minimum target down here, it has likely now removed those sellers from the market. Now I'm going to show you one more thing that's kind of interesting. I'm going to show you a number of things that are interesting. Looking at an hourly chart, I believe, is what we need to do. You can see that we were trading in something of a channel throughout much of the late summer, right here. And I believe this was the day we got the downgrade. What was that? Credit Suisse did their downgrade shenanigans. And what's interesting here, we also had two channels actually that we were trading in. We had this larger one that is outlined here by these pink lines. By the way, this was these lines right here were two of the things that were keeping me in. Two technical reasons why I was staying in this stock, because I thought when we got down to this level here, surely we bounce. But nope, we had to go all the way down and meet that minimum target. There's a reason why I thought that, but I'm not going to share it with you because it was wrong. So we were in this channel, turquoise lines. Additionally, we were in these two pink, in between these two pink lines. And look what happened on that downgrade. This was an acceleration of selling that was just really, at least for this, even in this stock, which is pretty volatile, pretty much off the charts. And so at that point, I was thinking to myself, I'm not selling in a panic. That is not the right time to sell, I don't think, ever. So I held and even added to my shares in the 5s, in the low 4s, to the point to where, I'll be honest with you, I did not buy a single share in Arena that I own today before FDA approval. But my average is just a little bit over 6. And I'll be honest with you, it's going to be a fight for me to get back to my average, but I'm willing to let this play out. So here's the deal. When you break a channel to the downside, as we broke this, when you break a descending channel to the downside, it's not unusual to see that channel be entered into again from below. A descending broken support line does not flip and turn into resistance with near the same regularity as an ascending an ascending support line. So we had a descending support line break here on the Credit Suisse downgrade. Then we entered into a steeper channel that actually you could say got started back in mid-August. That also broke to the downside. And that's when I was thinking to myself, when we got under 5, my strong inclination at that point was to say, I'm just going to have to suffer through what I believe is panic selling capitulation, if you will, by longs. And I'm not going to capitulate with you. If anything, I will add shares, and I did. Now, we are now back inside of this pink channel. And the question is, do we have the strength to get back over this line that is currently, when the market opens on Monday, will be at about 565, 566. Another thing that I think is going to be interesting is we have an area here that lasted for 2.5 weeks where we had support right around 575. And that broke. That created a gap. And I would fully expect upon a return to this line, and we may have seen some of that even earlier in the week when Arna got as high as 567, 566. That may have been one of the reasons why we got turned back here, is because this line will, in all likelihood, create a problem as gap resistance does its thing. And I won't bore you with the psychology of that. Just suffice it to say that people who bought during this 2.5 week period and woke up one day and they were significantly underwater, they may be the patient type, and they're thinking to themselves, you know, I hate this Arna pharmaceutical company. I hate their stock. And I'm just, if I get a chance to get out even, if we get back up into the mid 570s, you know something, I'm out of here. That could happen. So if it does happen, this line would represent some resistance. But if we get over this, then our next support line resistance is up in the over 7, right around the mid-7s. Now this is where it gets kind of interesting. Back in the summer, I was mentioning that there was a line that, if taken out, would represent a breakout of this sideways, which now is better defined as sideways then down, but we still have this trend line. Back in the summer, we would have had to have broken out well over 9 in order to see a renewed leg up. At this point, this line is still very important, and if Arna can get over this resistance line right here, then I believe it will have room to run, because there's not a whole bunch of trend lines up in this area. Now there would be the apex right here at about 783, where I believe there would be some difficulty, but that should be something that this could overcome. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Let's take a quick look at a 10-minute chart, and I'll show you that even on a 10-minute chart we get things that seem to work out pretty well. Some of this is not confirmed yet, but I'm going to share it just the same, just in case we end up confirming. When we broke out, by the way, back on the 8th, last Friday, on the the day when of the conference call, and the what a quarterly report. God, for some reason I couldn't think of that. Formed a nice little triangle here, broke out of that the next day, came up, slid down in a descending wedge that once it broke out, the idea is when you have a descending wedge, and you can look this up. I'm not making this up now because it sounds good. But when you have a descending wedge, the tendency is once you break out of that wedge, you should come back eventually and retest those highs. We did that on Friday. And we have also formed a new little triangle on Friday. Now the question is, of course, which way is this one going to go? Well, it could go either way. And if we get, a strong open on Monday, we may be setting up for a test of this line up here right around 575. And that's where I told you we could expect a fight. So this may be preparation for that fight. If we look at the height of this very small pattern and we measure it, because you can do that on the pattern whether it's on a daily chart, weekly chart, or 5-minute chart. If we were to break out of this on Monday, you can see that would be setting up a move to about 575. And it would be wonderful to see that rally on up over that line. I would love to see that happen, but I'm not holding my breath on that. Finally, I want to show you that when we opened on Friday, where did we come down to? We came down to, quote, close the gap. You see there, we were at 530, opened at 530 on Thursday, and then sold off for a bit. We opened at in the 540s, low 540s, sold down. That, quote, gap closed. And then we formed this nice little triangle throughout the day. If we look at our volume on that triangle, it got a little funky near the end of the day, a little bit more volume than you would expect to see while still in that triangle. But it was a Friday afternoon. I kind of chalked this up to day traders wanting to cash in on what was for them a nice day in Arena Pharmaceuticals. So maybe with those guys gone, it looked like we were trying to break out with about a half hour or so to go on Friday, but then we saw the exit right here. But thankfully, that could not take it down underneath the support line. So let's see what Monday holds. We will break out of this pattern right here on Monday, one way or the other. If we break to the downside, then we have a couple things to look at. We've got this lower line right here, which has 1, 2, 3 touches, and it could be setting up an even larger and potentially more helpful pattern. Let's make this orange so it stands out a little better. And that would be an ascending triangle. And why I say this could potentially be a little more helpful is if we are making an ascending triangle right here, then we would know from the size and shape of this triangle that if it breaks out to the upside, instead of this little triangle giving us a move to about 573, this larger pattern, again we go to the first reactive move, if it were to break out to the upside, then we're looking at a move to about 650, to the low 650s. And hey, I would be in the money at that point. So I'm pulling for that. But if we break to the downside, which is possible, then we could be coming down to the mid-4s again. So whichever way this goes, if we break down, I would sort of be looking for the mid-4s again, and I would just sit through that. If we break out to the upside, then 650, and that would be sweet because that would take care of that potential gap resistance that I'm thinking could very well be there. Finally, I want to look at a long-range view. Okay, looking at a weekly chart, what I want you to see is there was a triangle that lasted 2 years, almost 2 years, in 2006 and 2007. That triangle also has an apex. The apex of that was right around 12 or so, and that represented a challenge even 4.5 years later, which is kind of interesting. But that's not the thing I really want to show you. This line drawn across the top of these 4 peaks, and then also across the top of the highs in 2010, before the first AdCom rejected lorcaserin, sold down hard in a parallel channel to this top line, made an inverted head and shoulders pattern, broke up over this line, and what I want to show you is that line is also where that low 4, the low 4s got tagged. So that could be another reason why that would be a long-term and a very significant inflection point in Arna's stock price. And another thing is, if we look at the last 2 peaks, the one here that was that was right around 8, and then the one here that was right around 1350, that line could very well represent, if things were to just really get off the charts good, then that would represent, I would think, very strong resistance. And then just one more thing I wanted to show you is, you remember how I showed you this resistance line and then this support line, how they are very much parallel. If we go into what took place over the past year plus on a daily chart, and we look at our tops right here with a line that's drawn, weighted a little bit more for these last 2 than this one back here, we end up with a line that is parallel to our to this bottom and this bottom right here. So that's kind of the same the same thing on a smaller scale that I just showed you, where Arna reversed in its very, very long-term channel. We are now out of that channel. We are above that channel. And this move right here to the low 4s bounced on that broken channel line that was taken out back in May of 2012. So guys, there's work ahead, and I don't think it's going to be easy. You can see, looking at the moving averages that I've got on this chart, our green line here is a simple 50-day moving average. We have spent the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days primarily over that line, which is a good sign. This is our 200-day moving average right here. I expect this will get tested. Where, I cannot tell you, but I think this could get tested, and I would just look at this very closely. If we can get over this 575-ish area, which we're very near right now, getting over that would, to me, first thing is, it would absolutely mean we have to break out of this descending channel right here. And I think that would be setting up a move to test this descending resistance line at this area in the low to mid 7s. So guys, that's it. Just kind of interesting. I thought I'd throw this out. And my confession, if you had listened to my very first video on this, you would have been out at 750 waiting for the 4s. I wish I had taken my own advice, and I wish I had never revised that initial outlook, because that in retrospect turned out to be a picture perfect understanding of the chart. And I just did not take my own advice and sadly issued a revision on that on that first video, and not without some reasoning. Okay, but it turned out the first look was the right one. So hey, I offer this to you with my apologies, and I hope that Arena can get up out of this out of these doldrums, and if we could just get this puppy over 8 again, then I think we're going to run again. I think we're going to make a run into the low to mid-teens. So, but like I said, there's the caveat: gotta get over 8, gotta get that breakout. The good news is, like I said, that breakout used to be something over 9, and now as we look at the chart, it's at about 750, and I would say, to be safe, over 8. So there you go. There's the video. You know, I'll probably do another one if we get over this at some point in the months ahead. But thanks for watching. Take care.